My name is Isabel May Cruz. I am 16 years old, and on the morning of October 22nd, 2024, I died. Not figuratively, not emotionally, I literally died. It happened in Quezon City just before sunrise. I was getting ready for school, brushing my teeth, tying my shoes like any other morning. And then suddenly everything went black. No pain, no warning, just silence. My mom, ailing Maria, was in the kitchen making coffee before leaving for her second job. She told me later that she heard a loud thump from my room. When she found me, I wasn't breathing. No pulse, no heartbeat. She screamed. She called 911. She tried CPR even though she had never learned how. Her voice was cracking, shaking. She was sobbing, begging God, please, Lord, not my daughter, not like this, but I was already gone. The next moment, I was no longer in my body. I was floating, looking down at the scene from near the ceiling. I saw myself lying on the floor. I saw my mother pounding on my chest with trembling hands. I heard her sobs, and yet I felt no fear. I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I felt free. Then everything around me began to melt away. Not in a frightening way, it was peaceful. The room faded like mist clearing from a window, and I was standing on something soft, glowing like grass made of light. There were no buildings, no sky, just an endless expanse filled with warmth. It felt more alive than anything I had ever known. I wasn't breathing, but I didn't need air. I wasn't thinking, but somehow I understood everything. And then I felt it, a presence. Before I saw anything, I knew someone was there, someone massive but gentle, majestic but tender, like love itself had taken a form. The air grew thick with peace and warmth. My name was spoken, but not with sound, more like it was written directly onto my soul. Isabel. I turned around slowly, and there he was. Jesus. Not like the paintings, not like the statues in church. He wasn't pale or distant. He looked young, maybe in his 20s. His eyes were deep and full of life, like the ocean holding stars. His skin glowed gently from within like light, and love lived inside him. When he smiled, I felt like the only person who had ever mattered to him. I barely managed to whisper, "Am I dead?"
You are with me now, Isabel, and there are things I need you to see.
He held out his hand. I reached for it instinctively. The moment we touched, I felt every weight I had ever carried, every worry, every scar, every fear melt away in an instant, replaced by something pure, something strong, something holy. And just like that, my journey began. Jesus gently led me forward, and as we walked, the glowing landscape around us began to shift. It was like watching clouds rearrange themselves into something meaningful, until suddenly we were standing on what looked like a hill, but I could see the entire world below. Not like on a map. This was real. Cities, oceans, mountains, villages, all glowing faintly, pulsing with life. From above I could see everything and everyone.
This is the world as I see it, he said, so full of beauty and so full of pain.
I looked closer. I saw my school, my neighborhood. I saw people stuck in traffic, scrolling on phones, arguing in kitchens, crying silently in bathrooms. I saw loneliness in crowded rooms. I saw families sitting together, but not talking, friends taking selfies, but not truly seeing each other. And I felt this ache deep inside my chest, like I was seeing the truth behind the surface of everything.
Most of my children are lost, Isabel, not because they are evil, but because they are distracted. They've forgotten me. They filled their hearts with noise, but I still call out to them every single day.
Tears welled up in my eyes. I thought of my classmates, so stressed, so anxious, trying to be perfect to fit in, to impress people who don't even care. I thought of my mom, how she works 2 jobs, always tired, always worried. And I thought of myself, how I had gone to church but rarely prayed, how I believed in God but barely spoke to him. "I'm so sorry," I whispered.
You don't need to apologize, you just need to see, and then you must help others see too.
Suddenly the vision changed. We were inside my home. My mom was sitting on my bed. She looked older, like 10 years had passed in minutes. Her face was buried in her hands, shoulders shaking as she cried. There were photos of me on the wall, candles, flowers. I saw her open my closet, bury her face in my hoodie, breathing in the last scent of me. I wanted to run to her, to scream that I was okay, but I couldn't move. "Please help her," I begged.
She will feel lost for a time, but through your story she will find peace, just like others will.
Then I saw my best friend Mika sitting alone in the school library. She was staring at her phone reading the news of my death. Her eyes were red, she was shaking, and then I saw something amazing. She closed her eyes and started to pray, for the first time in years. "People are going to change," I whispered.
Yes, Isabel, but they need a voice, a witness, you.
More scenes unfolded faster like flashes of lightning. I saw strangers in churches, on buses, in classrooms, pausing, crying, kneeling, not because of me, but because of what my story would carry. I saw hardened men weep. I saw rebellious teens turn to prayer. I saw mothers and fathers hug their children tighter. I saw people open Bibles they hadn't touched in decades. It wasn't about fear, it wasn't about religion, it was about awakening. But then I saw the other side, people mocking the story, rolling their eyes, laughing online, saying it was fake, saying I was just another crazy girl trying to go viral.
Not everyone will believe, but faith doesn't require the world to agree, it only asks you to speak the truth.
I nodded slowly, heart pounding, but I'm just a kid, what if I fail?
Then fail with courage, fall with grace, and rise again. You are not alone, Isabel. I will be with you.
His words echoed like music inside my soul. Suddenly we were back on the glowing grass. The world below us faded and all I could hear was my heartbeat, steady, strong. I looked into his eyes one last time. "What happens now?"
Now I will show you what's coming, and why the world must prepare.
He reached out his hand again, and as I took it I felt the wind shift, like heaven itself was holding its breath. The moment Jesus touched my hand, I felt something I still don't have words for. It wasn't just a physical sensation, it was like every wound inside me, every fear I'd hidden from the world was gently being unwrapped and healed all at once. The air around us shimmered, and we were suddenly no longer in that peaceful field. We stood now on what looked like the top of a high hill, yet I could see the entire world spread out below us, glowing faintly, like a living map lit from within. Jesus stood beside me, taller than I remembered, not in a way that made me feel small but safe. He didn't say anything at first. He just let me take it all in. I could see oceans, mountains, cities. Every continent seemed alive beneath our feet, pulsing with movement and sound. Yet I heard nothing, just silence filled with meaning.
The time is coming, Isabel, when the world will tremble, not because I wish to harm, but because I long to wake them.
I turned to him, heart pounding. His eyes were gentle but so intense it felt like they looked through every layer of who I was. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. "What's going to happen?" He looked out over the glowing earth again and the skies began to shift above us. Colors, sounds, visions, everything around us transformed into something like a giant movie playing before my eyes. Except this wasn't fiction. It felt like prophecy written in light.
There will be 3 signs, Isabel, given to prepare my children. Each one is a call, a mercy, before the darkness comes.
I could feel the weight of those words before I even understood them. My breath caught in my throat. "The darkness," I whispered. He nodded slowly. 3 days, he said, "but before then I will not leave them without warning." And then he showed me the first sign. All at once the sky opened like a curtain and I heard the most haunting, beautiful sound I've ever imagined. It wasn't music yet, it was like the world's soul was singing. It came from the sky, the ground, the ocean. Every molecule of creation seemed to vibrate with this one sound. It wasn't just heard, it was felt. My skin tingled, my eyes filled with tears, and something deep inside me awakened.
This sound will be heard by every soul across every land for 7 minutes. Those who have ears to hear will know it is me calling. Some will tremble, others will run, but many will remember me.
I saw people reacting, some falling to their knees in prayer, some running into the arms of loved ones, others screaming or covering their ears. Entire cities paused, cars stopped, phones dropped. It was as if the world had suddenly remembered it had a soul. Then the vision shifted again. I was now looking at the night sky, only it wasn't like any sky I'd ever known. Ribbons of purple, gold, silver, and deep crimson danced across the heavens like living light. It was terrifying and beautiful. People came out of their homes and stared upward, mouths open, children pointing, dogs howling. The stars themselves seemed to pulse with a message.
For 3 nights the sky will declare my warning. Lights that have never been seen will dance across the heavens, visible from every nation. And those who have heard the sound will understand this is the second sign. Time is short.
I watched people start preparing, not out of fear, but out of this strange peace that fell over them. Some gathered family, Others filled jars with water-lit candles, read their Bibles aloud. Some fell to their knees and cried. I saw so much movement, but all of it grounded in the urgency to prepare their hearts. And then silence. It came suddenly and completely, not the kind of quiet we know here. This was a silence that even the air seemed to obey. Cities went still, no engines, no humming, no buzz of electricity, just the breath of creation. I saw traffic lights blinking out, screens going dark, airplanes grounded, phones lifeless, but I also saw something else, something holy.
This is the third sign, Isabel. When everything built by man ceases for 1 hour, my people will remember what they've forgotten: stillness with me. Those who know me will not fear. They will hear my whisper again, just like in Eden.
I felt overwhelmed, like I was being let into the secret heart of the world. The stillness wasn't frightening, it was holy. In the silence, people began to truly see one another. Neighbors who had fought for years shared a meal. Families prayed, others cried together without saying a word. Even those who had mocked faith now fell into silence, not from shame but awe. Then Jesus turned to me and I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a tear falling from his eye.
Not all will listen. Some will mock the signs. Some will cling to distraction. Some will use the silence for violence. But you, my little one, you must tell them. You must be brave. The darkness is not the end. It is my final invitation.
I wanted to fall to my knees. I didn't feel worthy of what he was showing me. I felt like a child holding a burning scroll. But I'm just me, I whispered. Why me?
Because your heart is still soft. Because you believe in wonder. And because they will listen to someone who has nothing to gain but everything to say.
And just like that, we stood at the edge of the darkness. And I knew the next part of my journey was just beginning. As I stood beside Jesus, gazing into the expanse of creation, I felt something shift inside me, like a veil had been torn away, and I was seeing not just the world, but the truth behind it. I had just witnessed the three signs: the heavenly sound, the celestial lights, and the global silence. But now Jesus looked toward the horizon, and what I saw next filled me with a sense of awe so deep it made my knees tremble. The sky before us began to dim, not into night but into something deeper, heavier. A darkness unlike any I had ever known slowly began to crawl across the earth like a living shadow. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was a silence that devoured noise, a stillness that felt thick with warning. This was the 3 days of darkness he had spoken of.
This is not a punishment, Isabel. It is mercy. It is my final invitation before justice must come. The world has filled itself with distraction, with idols made of screens and noise. Now I will remove those things so they might find me again.
As he spoke, I watched the world below descend into that supernatural darkness. Homes where families had prepared glowed with candlelight, small havens of warmth and peace amidst the overwhelming black. I saw fathers praying with their children, mothers reading scripture aloud, old wounds being healed in whispers. There was fear, yes, but it was a holy fear, like that of standing on sacred ground. But I also saw the other side. In homes where preparation had been mocked or ignored, there was chaos, panic, people scrambling for flashlights that didn't work, yelling in the streets, looting, sirens that never came. I saw neighbors turning on each other over scraps, not because they were evil, but because they had forgotten how to trust, how to sit still, how to believe.
The darkness will test hearts. It will expose what is hidden: bitterness, pride, selfishness, but also humility, repentance, and love. For those who are mine, it will be a holy pause, a reset of the soul. For others, it will feel like terror until they remember who I am.
His words wrapped around me like a gentle fire. This wasn't the wrathful ending the world had always feared. It was a divine interruption, a sacred silence meant to restore what noise had buried. I saw hospitals without power, but doctors praying over patients instead of panicking. I saw churches packed with people, not for spectacle, but for shelter. I saw hardened criminals falling to their knees, not from fear of death, but from the weight of love that had finally caught up to them. I also saw the heavens shift above the darkness. Stars blinked out, the moon faded, but above it all, a glow, not of light, but of presence. His presence. It hovered like a silent flame above every house that had prepared their hearts. And from that glow I saw something I hadn't expected: angels. They were not like pictures in books. They were powerful, towering, radiant with a fierce peace. and they stood watch over homes, over children, over the elderly, over those who had prayed, believed, and waited.
Do not be afraid of what you see. Fear is only the absence of faith. Those who remember me during the darkness will not be consumed by it. Their peace will be my light.
The vision shifted again, and now I saw schools, empty, silent. But I also saw teenagers like me lighting candles, holding Bibles, some crying, some singing, all trying to understand what was happening. And I felt something in my chest break open with compassion. These weren't just people in a vision. These were my classmates, my generation, the ones who had grown up scrolling, swiping, surviving. We had been trained to react, not reflect, to consume, not contemplate. And now, the silence was forcing us to remember we were more than likes, followers, and filtered smiles. I turned to Jesus, tears welling in my eyes. "What do I do with this?" I whispered. "How am I supposed to carry all of this and tell them?"
You don't carry it alone. You were never meant to. You speak and I will breathe. You testify and I will stir hearts. You tell them what you've seen and I will do the rest.
Then he placed his hand on my shoulder, and the warmth that flowed through me was unlike anything I had ever known. Not just comfort, not just love, but courage. Courage made of eternity.
The darkness is coming, yes, but so is the dawn. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of awakening.
And suddenly I was no longer on the hill, no longer beside him. I was floating again, pulled gently backward like the moment when a dream ends but you don't want it to. I reached for him. I wanted to stay. I wanted to rest forever in that holy peace.
You will see me again, little one. Every time you choose love, every time you pray, every time you speak truth when it's hard, I am with you until I call you home for real.
And with that, everything dissolved. I woke up gasping, not just for air but for him. The sterile scent of antiseptic hit me first, then the cold sensation of wires stuck to my skin. My eyes fluttered open under the harsh fluorescent light of a hospital room. Everything felt too loud, too sharp, like coming up from deep water too fast. "She's back!" a nurse shouted. My mother's face appeared above me, her eyes swollen from crying. She was whispering my name over and over, like a prayer that had finally been answered. "Isabel, baby, thank you, Lord. Oh my God, you're here." I wanted to say everything about Jesus, the hill, the signs, the darkness, but my throat burned and my words got stuck behind the beeping monitors and urgent voices. The doctors were baffled. They said I had flatlined for 22 minutes. They said there should be brain damage, no heartbeat, no breath, no explanation. But there I was breathing, awake, alive, more alive than I'd ever felt. And yet, I wasn't the same. Everything felt heavier now. I couldn't laugh at meaningless jokes. I couldn't scroll on my phone for hours pretending life was simple because I had seen what was coming, and I had heard the voice of the one who holds it all. That night in the hospital, after the room had quieted and my mom had finally fallen asleep in the corner chair, I stared out the window. The stars looked different, not just beautiful, urgent, like they were trying to remind me of something I could so easily forget again. Whispers of doubt began to creep in. No one will believe you. They'll think it was a dream, a side effect, a hallucination. But then I remembered his voice.
Some will believe, some won't. That is not your burden. Your job is to plant the seed. I will take care of the rest.
Still, it wasn't easy. The next few weeks at home were filled with awkward conversations, sleepless nights, and a growing ache in my chest that I couldn't name. I tried telling my mom first. She cried again, but this time it was different. I've been feeling something, she whispered, like a warning, like I need to prepare, but I didn't know what for. Now I think I do. But others, they weren't as accepting. At school, the story got out fast. Girl dies, sees Jesus, says the world is ending. Some kids laughed, some called me crazy. Others kept their distance, afraid of what they didn't understand. Even my closest friends didn't know what to say. "Izzy, you've been through a lot," one of them said gently. "Maybe you imagined it like a coping thing." I wanted to scream it was real, but all I could do was nod and walk away. The hardest part wasn't the ridicule, it was the silence, the polite dismissals, the eyes that looked past me, unwilling to see. But then something unexpected happened. One day after school, a girl from my biology class came up to me in the hallway. I barely knew her. She always sat in the back and never raised her hand. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, voice trembling. We sat on the bleachers in the empty gym. She stared at the floor for a long time. Then she said, "When I was 10, my little brother died in his sleep. I used to believe in God, but after that, I didn't know how. But after what you said about Jesus and the darkness, I started praying again. My throat tightened. I hadn't even known she'd listened. I don't know if I believe everything yet, she continued, but I want to. That night I cried in my room, not out of sadness, but because I finally understood what Jesus meant.
You tell them what you've seen, I will do the rest.
More conversations like that followed. Quiet ones, honest ones. A boy whose parents were going through a brutal divorce. A teacher who had lost her husband in a car crash. A janitor who asked if I really thought people like him could be loved by God. Each time I shared my story, I felt the weight inside me grow lighter. And each time someone asked, what should I do to prepare, my answer was the same. Start with your heart. That's what he wants. Still, it wasn't always easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep. Days I felt the pressure of being a messenger more than a teenager. I missed the simplicity of before, of worrying about grades and what shoes to wear. But I wouldn't go back, not for anything. Because I had touched something eternal, and I wasn't going to waste the second chance I'd been given. The weeks that followed became a quiet awakening, not just for me, but for others too. At first, I thought I was alone in carrying the weight of what Jesus had shown me, but slowly, like dawn breaking through fog, I began to see at little signs that hearts were stirring. My neighbor, an elderly man named Tito Elmer, had never spoken more than a nod in all the years we lived beside him. But one morning, he waved me over while watering his plants. His voice was gruff, hesitant. I saw your interview, he said, referring to the local church that asked me to share my story on their live stream. I don't know what to make of it, but I haven't prayed in 40 years, and last night I did. I stood there stunned, not because of what he said, but because of the tears in his eyes. Everywhere I went, people started asking questions, quietly, cautiously, at the market, on the school bus, online. Messages poured into my Instagram, some mocking, some angry, but many just searching. Is it true about the signs? What should I do if the sound comes? Do you really think Jesus would care about someone like me? And to each one I answered as best I could.
Tell them I care about the one. I leave the 99 for the one. No soul is too lost, no heart too hard.
There was something happening, something that couldn't be denied. I started keeping a notebook of stories people shared. One girl said she made peace with her estranged father after years of silence. A teacher confessed to forgiving the drunk driver who killed her son. A teenage boy admitted he'd stopped self-harming after hearing about the 3 signs and started praying each night before bed. I wasn't a preacher, I wasn't a prophet, I was just a 16-year-old girl trying to be faithful. But I realized that the message Jesus gave me was like a ripple dropped into still water, and now it was spreading. Still, not everyone reacted with peace. Some rejected it violently. A pastor from another church publicly called my story demonic manipulation. He said the 3 days of darkness wasn't biblical and I was just trying to scare people. A girl at school posted a TikTok mocking my voice and editing clips of me crying during the live stream. Cringe prophetess, the caption said. And yet, that same girl messaged me 2 days later. I haven't slept since your video, she wrote. I laughed. But I'm scared. Can you pray for me? That's when I realized the message wasn't just for the faithful. It was for the mocking, the broken, the skeptics, the hopeless. It was for all of us. Because the signs weren't just a warning, they were an invitation.
The signs are not to terrify, but to wake the sleeping, to call home the wandering, to draw near the distracted.
The sound, the lights, the silence, they weren't punishments, they were mercy. In the days after I came back from the hospital, I started reading the Bible for the first time, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to hear his voice again. The words felt alive, like they had waited years for me to open them. One night I read, "And in the last days I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions." Acts 2:17. I burst into tears, because I realized this wasn't just a dream. I wasn't just some random teenager. Jesus had chosen me, and I didn't know why, but I wasn't going to waste it. Some evenings, I would walk outside and look up at the stars, half expecting the lights he showed me to appear at any moment. I'd whisper, "I'm ready, Lord, but please help me help others be ready too." It wasn't long before I noticed the change in my own family. My mom, once skeptical and overwhelmed with work, started lighting candles at night and praying beside me. She called her estranged sister and apologized for years of silence. She started reading the Psalms before bed. I don't understand everything she said one night, but I know something's coming. I feel it. Even my younger cousin, who used to laugh whenever we talked about God, pulled me aside during a family dinner. 8, he said, if I hear that sound, what do I do first? I smiled through tears. You pray, you forgive, you tell him you want to come home. And in that moment I knew I was no longer just a survivor. I was a witness. And there was power in that. Because no matter what people said, no matter how much ridicule or doubt or confusion surrounded me, I had seen Jesus. I had held his hand. I had heard his voice. And nothing could ever take that away from me. It began quietly, like a whisper before a storm. 3 months after I came back to life, the world seemed the same on the surface. Cars still sped through the streets, people still scrolled endlessly through their phones, and laughter still echoed in malls and cafeterias. But something shifted. At first only I noticed, then others did too. It started on a Thursday afternoon. I was walking home from school when the air suddenly changed. It was like the world took a breath and held it. The birds stopped singing, even the wind stilled. I froze. My heart beat louder than anything around me. Then I heard it. The sound? Not with my ears, but with my soul. It was beautiful. Terrifyingly beautiful. Like the voice of the earth groaning and rejoicing at the same time. It was not a melody, but a presence like all of heaven was calling out in one long, eternal note.
The first sign my daughter has begun.
People around me stopped moving. Some dropped their phones. Others clutched their chests. A man knelt on the sidewalk sobbing. A woman screamed. I looked up and saw birds spiraling mid-flight, confused by the stillness. The sound lasted exactly 7 minutes. And in those 7 minutes, I saw the world begin to wake up. At school the next day, students whispered in hallways. A tough-looking boy who used to bully kids asked to lead the morning prayer. A teacher who never talked about faith asked if she could speak with me privately. I don't know what happened yesterday, she said, her voice shaking. But I haven't felt this shaken since my mother died. All over social media, people posted videos. Did you hear it? I thought I was going crazy. Then I saw everyone else freeze too. Hashtag the sound, hashtag heaven called, something is coming. I stayed quiet for a while, watching, waiting, praying. And then the second sign came. 3 nights later, the sky began to move. It started like the aurora, but more intense. Golds, violets, white fire rolling across the sky, like God himself was painting with light. People came out of their homes mesmerized, but those who remembered the sound, they fell to their knees. Some prayed, others cried, a few danced under the lights with arms lifted in surrender. My mom stood next to me in the yard, speechless. I looked at her and said, it's time. We filled water jugs, we packed candles, we invited our neighbors. Not all came, some laughed, some shrugged, but a few came trembling. On the 3rd night of the lights, I stayed up until dawn. Then it happened. The silence, like a void swallowing the noise of the world. Cars wouldn't start, phones died, screens blinked off, even electricity halted. But the wind blew, the birds chirped, and I could feel his presence.
Now my people must choose. In the silence, truth is loudest.
Families gathered. People apologized to one another. I saw parents hugging their children like it was the first time in years. Strangers passed food and candles. Our small home filled with neighbors some we barely knew, but who now clung to us like family. My heart swelled and broke at once, because I knew. After the silence, only 24 hours remained. I sat in the garden that night holding my Bible. The pages glowed in the candlelight, but it was his words I heard in my heart.
They will remember what it means to love, when there is nothing left to distract them.
I cried, not out of fear, but out of awe. The world I once feared was dying, and in its place something holy was being born. Since that day, my life has never been the same. I no longer worry about popularity grades or what people think of me. My heart carries a fire that I cannot put out, a calling that burns brighter with every passing day. I'm not special. I'm just a 17-year-old girl from the Philippines who died and came back with a message. But I've learned something simple and eternal.
Those who listen will find peace. Those who prepare will not fear. And those who trust in me will never be alone.
What he showed me was not just a warning, it was an invitation. An invitation to return to what truly matters, to slow down, to reconnect, to remember who we are in him. This isn't about religion. It's about relationship. It's about knowing that there's a Savior who loves you more than you can imagine, enough to whisper through signs, enough to call through silence, and enough to die so you might live. So what now? Don't wait for the sound. Don't wait for the sky to light up. Don't wait for the silence to fall. Start today, right now. Tell your parents you love them. Forgive that friend who hurt you. Open your Bible even if you've never read it before. Turn off your phone for an hour. Sit in the quiet. Listen. Pray. And when you feel that whisper in your heart, that's Him.
I am here. I have always been here. I have waited patiently for you.
If this story touched something deep in you, if you felt something you can't explain, don't scroll away. This is your moment. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you felt, what you believe, or even what you're still struggling to understand. Like this video so that it reaches more people who need to hear this message. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel because more stories of truth, hope, and eternity are coming. You're not alone in this journey. We are a growing family of people who've seen glimpses of heaven and want to help others get there too. This is not the end. It's only the beginning. Let's prepare together. Jesus is coming, and He's calling your name.